this will be really interesting to see how this one's going to fare out. Again, both these players are in day 2, but this is going to get you one step closer into being top cut, which is the goal of this whole thing.
One step closer. I'm really interested to see how both players start out looking for that one step closer. These lead matchups will be so important in setting the pace of the match. For Riley, it is the Ursaluna and the Incineroar, and it is the Calyrex Shadow Rider on the other side. So Ursaluna probably led looking for Calyrex on the other side to be led because it's the best answer to Astral Barrage. Your second best answer is the Incineroar, and both of them on the field already against that Calyrex.
All right, and this is going to be the first turn. You know, the Intimidates to do absolutely nothing, but you're talking about how well these two are matching up into this Calyrex. So then, where does John go from here on this turn?
Well, this Calyrex is Terra fighting Terra Blast, something that is a deviation from other versions of the Weezing team, so can just opt to go straight out on the offense with that. Against these Pokemon, of course, very impactful to decide to spin the Terastallization early, because then those are a Pokemon that is sometimes very reliant on Terastallization, so a pivotal decision. NDD, either way, provides some support. It's already provided Psychic Terrain to make sure that Fake Out is not a threat on this turn, even against the Calyrex if it drops its Ghost typing. It can then further support with Follow Me if John desires, but no, just going to switch it out, get Weezing on the field, turn off abilities.
Going on forward, no abilities from the other end. Of course, Incineroar's already kind of spent his, but looking at maybe like the Ursaluna not being able to capitalize if it did kind of stick around, want to protect, have something like the Guts after the Flame Horde is activated. This will also make it, when we're swapping in, that we're not going to be switching over the terrain. So good calls coming out from both ends, as already early on, it is going to be that Terra fighting. Love to see this Terra animation, because we don't get to see this one as much. But I love this going into this match. Where is it going to be targeting, though? Of course, when you were expecting your own terrain to override the Psychic Terrain, you went for the Fake Out, but of course the terrain stays the same, ability shut off, and that's going to be a lot of damage into this Miraidon for this first turn.
Really important switch outspeed there with the NDD switching first before the Ursaluna on the other side, meaning that Weezing hits the field before Miraidon does and stops the terrain from changing over. And like you mentioned, Riley goes ahead and goes for Fake Out even with Psychic Terrain on the field, expecting to be able to change the terrain over, and so pays a really high cost for that switch with Miraidon nearly knocked out already, so low that it's vulnerable to something just like Weezing Dazzling Gleam picking up the KO, and doesn't have the same offensive potential because it hasn't changed over to electric terrain. So Hadron Engine's not boosting damage. No, Hadron Engine's not on anyway, but it's not boosting damage, and no electric terrain boosts the damage, so it can't really threaten the KO back into Weezing. So a really strong start for John.
So now it's going to be Miraidon. You're just on a little bit of health, so that is an instant swap out, and Ursaluna is going to make its reappearance back out onto this field. Astral Barrage, I mean, great swap in terms of, yeah, this Ursaluna cannot get hit by this. And when you're talking about Pokemon that naturally match up well into it, Incineroar takes damage, but barely any at that point. Flare Blitz, Incineroar into the Calyrex, critical hit, but 3 HP is barely going to be holding on into this next turn. Now Toxic Spikes, this is going to be putting down these toxic little pieces of nuisance over onto the opposing field. So now swapping will come at a cost.
Importantly, swapping and poisoning the Miraidon will mean that it gets quickly KO'd, probably can't ever effectively threaten damage against Dondozo later on because of how low it is. Calyrex takes that critical hit, manages to hang on, but the critical hit still really impactful because now Calyrex will KO itself with Life Orb the next time that it attacks, and so really only has one shot left. Now that could be a really great shot. That can be Terra fighting Terra Blast into Incineroar or Expanding Force into Ursaluna, but does mean there's now a timer on the Calyrex on this side. Now, also with abilities turned off and Ursaluna now burnt, it's really not threatening much damage because Guts is turned off, and so less damage coming back at the Weezing.
Yeah, because normally when you would look at, hey, an Ursaluna, just the tight matchup together, like, could do so much, but at this point, really, really neutralized, since, neutralizing gas. U-turn or Weezing, so now Incineroar can swap out. I mean, when we see the Toxic Spikes, I don't think we'll see the Miraidon. This is probably the opportunity to see the 4th Pokemon here for Riley, and it's going to be this Whimsicott. Little poison, we talked about the poison spikes, but Whimsicott at full, it's going to be fine through this one. It will mean that your Sash is gone, but it's the price to pay for the swap in. Strange Team into the Ursaluna is confused, so it's not guaranteed to be hitting on this next turn. Always a chance of Cell hitting, and oh, that's exactly what it's going to be. It's not the most damage, but it means you're not outputting anything.
Right, and this damage is starting to mount up. The poison is going to tick away at the Whimsicott. The Strange Steam damage, the health hit from Confusion damage, and the burn damage is mounting up to Ursaluna being just about 60% health and already on the way out. Those are the kinds of things you want to pick up if you're looking for Dondozo to clear the game at the end. Now, probably no Dondozo here because we've already seen 3 Pokemon from John's side, so less stalling available at the end of the game, but still really valuable damage and still 1 attack left for Calyrex to pick up even more out of this. No Prankster for Whimsicott means that it could probably just go down to a Life Orb Astral Barrage or Expanding Force if that's what John wants on this turn, so nothing's really easy or safe for Riley here.
Nothing at all, and Miraidon not safe either. You switch in, you're just on a little bit of health and instantly poison on this swap in. Maybe an opportunity to try and switch out to something safer from this line, but for this time it just has to be a Whimsicott with the Protect. Expanding Force, we're not even going to have to wait until the poison damage to get rid of this Miraidon. We're going to get rid of this now.
I think a smart play from Riley to recognize there was very little value left in the Miraidon, and something had to take an attack from Calyrex in order for Life Orb to KO the Calyrex, and so making that last attack from Calyrex just be the finishing KO on the Miraidon instead of like a devastating Expanding Force into Ursaluna and Whimsicott probably is his best chance to fight back into this, but those bits of damage continue to stack up. Now it's 2 layers of Toxic Spikes before Incineroar hits the field again, and Whimsicott takes another turn of poison damage while just taking it off Protect on that last turn. With very little actual damage left for John now with the Calyrex off the field. It's going to be all on the Roaring Moon to deal any big hits that aren't just the bits of stall and chip from Weezing.
But again, when you're looking at this Ursaluna that isn't doing the most damage, maybe it's not poison, but it's still burnt, so that still means you're going to be taking some damage over these turns. And as soon as the Incineroar swaps in, looking at that badly poisoned, maybe if like a couple pieces like the Weezing aren't offputting the most amount of damage, there's still going to be just that passive amount of damage. And Roaring Moon, as the last Pokemon here, is definitely something that can hit for a decent little chunk of damage. And I mean, at this point, again, it's just this damage over time.
Does have to watch out for a Moonblast from the other side. Trestlalization's already been spent, so you can't use that. It would be 4 times super effective into Roaring Moon. Might be able to just pick up a KO. Whimsicott should be naturally faster, so a little bit of threat there.
Right, well, we know the Trestlalization's been spent on the other side, but Riley has been holding on. And this is going to be the Whimsicott into this Ghost type. Going on in later points of this match. But hey, look at how cute this little Whimsicott looks over here. Roaring Moon for the Protect. The one thing about John's team is when we're looking at a team that, you know, relies on this poison damage, 5 of 6 of these Pokemon have that Protect. And it's going to be a Protect apiece as well on the other side. Ursaluna staying safe, but Whimsicott was targeting down that Roaring Moon, and Roaring Moon, nothing's going to happen there.
So no damage on that turn except for these bits of chip that are going to come in with the poison damage and the burn damage just towards John's favor. But yeah, this Moonblast is a problem. Now John could do something like switch Weezing out in order to allow the speed booster to go off if that's what it is. That would push the Roaring Moon up faster. Could also try to switch in the other slot to just get Roaring Moon out of trouble, so kind of easy to diffuse. Things that still look very difficult for Riley, but for a moment, there's that like one thrust of offense available to him.
A little bit. In this matchup, from the get-go, when we're losing the restricted, it's so interesting to see all these supportive pieces and what can be put together in these moments of the match to get that victory. And you're talking about the switch, the speed. It gets really weird with the Galarian Weezing around.
Yeah, you kind of never know exactly how the mechanics are going to go when Weezing is on the field or off the field. It puts Riley in a difficult position. Doesn't know whether he's going to have Guts or not have Guts this turn, have Prankster or not have Prankster this turn, because that's all in John's hands to decide. And he does. He switches out the Weezing, turns off the neutralizing gas, and so abilities are back, and the first ability that's going to go off is NDD's Psychic Surge.
Yeah, Battlefield getting just a little weird on this moment, but notably the ability that we're looking at, we get this Photosynthesis and we will get this speed. And when we're looking at, hey, it's a Roaring Moon that you want to be able to hit and attack off into something like Whimsicott, it is needed. You're talking about abilities though, and Incineroar swapping in, it's going to have an ability, so it will be able to at least lower the attack of the Roaring Moon. Whether that makes a difference is yet to be seen. Of course, the cost of coming onto the field is you will get badly poisoned. So again, damage over time. Knock off into the Whimsicott, super effective now that it's terrestrialized. So that one won't necessarily matter. And now Riley down to just 2 final Pokemon.
Yeah, Riley wanted to catch maybe an Acrobatics on the previous turn with the Ghost Terrestrialization, but then now with it already spent, knockoff is an easy KO into Whimsicott, even at -1 attack. So abilities are back, but only temporarily, because Weezing will still hit the field at some point, and the chip damage is really mounting up. Incineroar is badly poisoned and has no ability to reset the badly poisoned timer anymore either. Is stuck on the field, only has a handful of turns left. Ursaluna not doing much damage, and Burn. Really, Riley just didn't bring that much damage overall to this match. A couple of Pokemon that are very reliant on their abilities to be significant damage threats, and so that meant when Weezing was on the field, Ursaluna and Miraidon just didn't have, we think of them as these devastating attackers, but they didn't have the same damaging impact with the Weezing around. It's made it very difficult.
Ursaluna on this turn. This will be the protect, so yet again, this bear, no damage coming out. Indeedy, make sure that anything from this Incineroar is going to be redirected. Incineroar, again, it's going to take this hit quite well, but slowly but surely is the name of the game. Super effective into the Indeedy. Safety Goggles not going to make a difference here. Just going to be a lot of damage, and another crack at it next time around. Get to see that damage add up. Of course, Incineroar is taking a lot more being badly poisoned rather than the burn, but yeah, both are getting dangerously low.
Both are getting dangerously low. Ursaluna in this matchup also stuck as a single target attacker, has Substitute, not Earthquake, in that slot, and so really can only go after one of these Pokemon at a time. It means it takes a lot of attacks for Riley to close this game with only so much health to spend, and even more of it being lost with that Psychic.
Psychic bringing it down so low, and Incineroar will take a KO onto the Indeedy, and you know, Ursaluna at this point in the match does offer an attack and will be able to get a hit off, but again, it's been brought down to such low health. Facade will take down the Roaring Moon, so the Galarian Weezing that caused all the problems is going to be the last Pokemon for John, but Incineroar holds on just barely with the poison. Ursaluna, same thing, but talked about the fact that, yeah, these Pokemon have Protect, so Weezing, as soon as it hits the field, I think I know exactly what John's going to go for.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's exactly how I would have closed the game, but getting the maximum out of those little end-of-turn damage over times is able to just let both Pokemon go down, get Weezing out here, with Weezing having the tailwind to make sure that it's faster than either of these Pokemon if it needs to attack them, and can also protect through this end game to close it.
Yep, so easiest protect of John's life. We don't even have to think about that one, as yeah, Riley, same thing. You just got to click the buttons. You know the protect is on the other side, but you still got to. And again, this Incineroar being badly poisoned, this Ursaluna having the burn, we're now going to see the moment where, yep, Incineroar, goodbye. It was nice knowing you, and just one Pokemon left, and this one's about to take some burn damage. And even if it's not enough quite for the KO, again, talk about that tailwind and the opportunity for the Weezing to just finish this off.
Right, Weezing can just go out on the offensive and close this out. Ursaluna probably also couldn't even pick up a KO now that Burn is once again mitigating its damage impact. So yeah, John with a really well-played game, just used control of abilities at all the right times. Got his abilities, right? Got the Psychic Terrain down on turn 1 so that he could get Expanding Force damage and block Fake Out. Got his Photosynthesis boost onto Roaring Moon when he needed the speed against Whimsicott, but then denied every crucial ability from Riley. Never once saw Electric Terrain. Never got, get the one Guts boosted attack, but at a point where the game was basically lost. So really well played throughout for John to control the abilities that well, and Riley's going to have to find something new to seize a little bit of control for his own.
Yeah, and this was a control that we saw from John from the very get-go in the match. The very first turn, the swap into the Galarian Weezing. So Riley attempting to bring in the Miraidon, override the terrain, and go for Fake Out, instantly denied. And from there, it was just, all right, you don't have the abilities. And Galarian Weezing can just kind of take the game from there. John, there's no damage output coming out from Riley. John can get up not 1, but 2 layers of Toxic Spikes, and in the end game, there's nothing Riley can do from that position.
Yeah, that turn 1 was just so devastating because it really meant Miraidon was never able to accomplish anything. From Riley's side, I think you mentioned the offense, right? with the two Pokemon he brought as attackers, thinking of Whimsicott and Incineroar not really as attackers, they were so reliant on abilities. And so the actual KO onto Weezing was extremely difficult to get. So I'd be curious if Riley looks at the Iron Crown, because Iron Crown not a Pokemon that's reliant on abilities for all of its damage, and either one of its same type attack boosted moves is super effective into Weezing. So a lot of direct threat into the Weezing if you just want to get it off the field in order to enable the abilities on the other side. Even if you don't actually successfully get that KO, because say it just switches out into Indeedee or something, it can buy you the time to then set electric terrain so that the Miraidon can do more significant damage, or give the Ursaluna a chance to get a guts boosted attack off. And so I think there's got to be more damage than just those two. Otherwise, we'll just see a repeat of the Weezing so effectively walling Riley's offense.
Yeah, I love the call out for any just sort of pressure into the Weezing, because that's a reason we got to see it stick around for so long was, well, when you're staring down to Ursaluna and Incineroar, like, okay, what are they really going to do at this point, right? Even when the Whimsicott was out, I mean, it was a Whimsicott that was forced to Terrasilize, get around in acrobatics, and just gets absolutely wrecked by the knockoff the next turn. So going into this match, from the get-go, it's going to be this Ursaluna and this Incineroar run back. Galarian Weezing, though, instead of a switcheroo, is going to be right away out onto the field. So if you want to be shutting down something like a fake out, it would have to be a swap, or you just have to take it.
Yeah, it could just take the fake out, maybe not too much threat back. John probably not expecting that he could make the same kind of trap for Riley in game 2 that he made in game 1, so instead the Weezing's just on the field. But that probably is a little bit to Riley's benefit. Also, could go out on the offense into Weezing with the Ursaluna on this turn before he's burnt, possibly. Calyrex, though, just going to protect itself for this turn. Can't Terrasilize because it'd be vulnerable to fake out, and can't risk a knockoff from the other side. There's the knockoff.
That's a big thing. Now that you're not forced into the Terrasilization, maybe putting yourself in a weird position like the fake out, Protect just solves all of that. And hey, with the Galarian Weezing, if you're not forced to be switching around or anything else, this is the first chance, first opportunity to start doing a lot of damage. Right away, though, we're looking at ways to pressure this Weezing. It might not be a one-hit KO, but that Weezing is down to just this sliver of health. So, well, it won't be able, like, it either has to set up that final stage or it has to protect, and it's probably just going to get KO'd at the end of this, which means Riley will be able to have his abilities back for the rest of the match.
Right, I think that was a really expensive Toxic Spikes for John to take the headlong rush in return, because that is like a one-turn window before the Ursaluna burns itself and mitigates its own damage. And so a really expensive decision to go for the Toxic Spikes there. That means this game's already looking very different in complexion to game 1, because that ability wall is not going to be consistently there. Now something like Incineroar can easily finish off the Weezing, whereas that was never a possibility in game 1. Now John can still, now there's a special defense drop on the Ursaluna on the other side, so options like Terra Fighting, Terra Blast to just KO the Ursaluna have opened up. So, you know, it's different in both directions.
Ooh, so I really like this Protect then. If you do think that there is the possibility of that, you just safe right here. And when we're looking at this expanded force, well, the Incineroar, that's going to be immune to that. So nothing coming out from this Calyrex and just taking a lot of damage in return. Notably, though, that does mean that this Weezing is going to be sticking around for one more Poison Gas into this Incineroar. So we don't even have to wait for the swap before it gets poisoned. The Weezing is just going to leave a little parting gift right now. And yeah, still sticking around for one more. So Riley can try again next turn, but you're still then leaving the Ursaluna susceptible to a hit from the Calyrex.
Still maybe leaving the Ursaluna susceptible, but crucially leaving the Calyrex susceptible. That was a very risky turn for John, right? If it had just been knockoff instead of Flare Blitz, then Calyrex would be gone already, but still paid a high cost for it. Giving up more than half of Calyrex's health bar now also means that you can really only target down one of these Pokemon with the Calyrex, and the other one can just come back and KO Calyrex in return, most likely.
Weezing looking to overstay a welcome as Protect ensures it'll stay around for one more turn. Expanding Force, though, not enough for this KO, since it is going to be single target at this point. That's going to be Incineroar. Then you talked about the amount of Flare Blitz damage it did before, and yeah, that's going to be enough to more than KO the Calyrex for this turn.
I do wonder if leading the Weezing and not spinning the Terastallization early is indicative that maybe Dondozo is in the back this time. And if you look at this position, you know, as a setup for Dondozo to come in against these Pokemon, it looks a lot better than if it's those same partners from the previous game.
Well, now that we've seen a KO, we get the confirmation, and sure enough, Len knows what he's talking about. We're going to see that Dondozo and Tatsugiri in the back. Dondozo is going to be the first to hit the field. Not a surprise there. And this is now Riley knowing, okay, this is the strategy that I have to go up against. So now it's going to be the moment of, hey, are we seeing the swap? Are we not? Considering that it's such low health, I feel like it's pretty safe for you to see the swap here.
Now we can recontextualize a lot of the early decisions that John made. Don't worry as much about Weezing's health bar if it's just going to switch out soon anyway to have Tatsugiri come on the field. Chipping down these Pokemon is very important, and now like you saw, the Earthquake selection that makes it very hard for Miraidon to come in here either because it would take so much damage from Earthquake. So even as you take Weezing off the field, it's not easy to pivot into Miraidon. Terastallization is preserved. That means that Dondozo can fight against the Miraidon much better as well, but there's still 2 unrevealed Pokemon for Riley, and one of them is the Whimsicott, which is going to take that Earthquake just fine and be a thorn in the side of Dondozo.
It will still get poisoned though, so even if it's taking an Earthquake well, it still has to take that status condition and just a little bit of damage over time. But talking about, hey, seeing the Tatsugiri come in, Weezing, you can see later. Sure enough. So here is going to be the commander, everyone's favorite duo, a favorite ability, and we're going to see a lot of boost going for the Dondozo's way. But now it's going to be Dondozo essentially against the world. Riley still has a Pokemon at this point and hasn't used the Terastallization either in this match. But the Dondozo, it is this grass type, which fares decently well into a lot of what Riley's throwing his way. And I said Riley had all 4 Pokemon. I forgot the Ursaluna was about to get KO'd. So 3 Pokemon versus this Dondozo.
Yeah, so it is 3-3, right? The early trades have been equalized, and that expensive Toxic Spike starts to look a lot better when it's the Whimsicott now taking chip damage. Whatever 4th Pokemon, most likely the Miraidon that's unrevealed, will also be taking chip damage after it comes in and gets poisoned, so you're happier to have paid that cost with now Dondozo trying to just pick up the necessary damage. Incineroar can come in and intimidate the Dondozo, but has also already lost a lot of its health, and so will continue to take more damage from poison as well, and you don't really have much threat back into Dondozo. When you choose to go to Incineroar to get the Intimidate, now you just have Whimsicott and Incineroar against the Dondozo. You can do something like Fake Out and Switch to get something more threatening out there, but you're still paying poison damage for that turn, for that fairly passive turn. So Riley's going to have to do something to kind of up the momentum quickly in this game.
Whimsicott switching out, so a Pokemon that could have been potentially a little bit more passive is something that's switching. So you want to up the momentum. Let me introduce you to my friend Miraidon. Definitely a Pokemon that has the power capability, but now going to be poisoned and still a smidge more of a timer. Hadron Engine, finally you're going to get your train of choice. Fake Out will at least ensure that this Pokemon swaps in relatively safely though, so that's going to be a big thing going on for this match.
Fake Out lets it swap in safely, but also means this is a completely neutral turn that is just 2 ticks of poison on the other side. It also isn't Dondozo protecting, so Dondozo is free to protect through the next turn and continue to pick up more chip. And what's very crucial is that Grass Terastallization combined with the Dragon Pulse from on the Miraidon on the other side rather than Draco Meteor means that this Miraidon actually needs quite a few turns to get through the Dondozo, all the while taking poison damage.
A lot of switching coming out from Riley as Incineroar yet again leaves the field and Whimsicott back in. Just a little bit of, revolving Incineroar Intimidate.
Trying to catch a Protect so that it could be Encored and mean that the Dondozo can't threaten any damage at all. Makes it a little bit riskier to go for those safe Protects, wanting to just pick up Poison Chip as well. The Ghost Terastallization will make sure that Order Up is not a super effective move. Earthquake's not a super effective move, so Miraidon has a little bit more staying power.
And this is where we get to see Terastallization from both of these trainers. So the Ghost type coming on out, and the Dondozo, the Grass Terastallization as well, the defensive type, to try and make sure it sticks around for as long as possible as this poison damage just slowly and slowly does its work. Trying to catch Protect, won't this time, and Dragon Pulse, still a decent chunk of damage, all things considered. At least with the Dragon Pulse too, you don't have to worry about it missing, so consistent damage there. Not too much from this Earthquake, even after a critical hit into this Miraidon.
Yeah, not too much, but it mounts up quickly, right? The leftovers means that it heals for a turn. Poison damage is ticking down on the Miraidon. Probably one more Earthquake and a bit of poison is enough to close this game. Whimsicott doesn't have that much more staying power either because it's ticking down in poison. And then you do have to deal with Tatsugiri at some point as well. So if the Miraidon goes down, the Tatsugiri starts to look very comfortable against Incineroar and Whimsicott. Things like are looking very difficult for Riley. Dragon Pulse just not doing quite enough damage.
A double up Moonblast, still just not that damage necessary. And yeah, we haven't even really talked about so much this Tatsugiri, the focus sash in the back. If you can even get past this Dondozo, that's going to be another Earthquake. Both of these Pokemon so low at this point, and that leftovers recovery just makes this look like an impossible task. Might be close, so Miraidon does stick around. Whimsicott, not as much. So yeah, you can still even just freely protect on this turn, and Miraidon's gone.
Right, protect is back. You don't have to worry about Encore anymore, but I think even if you were going to get Encore, you'd be happy to protect in order to get a KO onto Miraidon. That will leave Incineroar by itself, poisoned at about 25% health. I think John has cleanly won this already. Like, just set the right sets of chip damage onto Riley's side of the field. It's what's so dangerous about the Dondozo behind the Weezing, that when you let the Calyrex become this vacuum of attention. So we saw in turn 1 and turn 2 that Riley was very focused on it, focused on how much impact it had in the previous game. When it is that vacuum of attention, suddenly the chip damage goes down, the poisons go down, and it is so difficult to deal with Dondozo from that position.
And we're going to let all the animations play out, make this official. Protect from the Dondozo. Dragon Pulse is going to do absolutely nothing. Incineroar does even less with the attempt at a knockoff. It's just this Dondozo versus these Pokemon that really just cannot do anything at this point. And Miraidon barely hung on last turn through the poison, so no chance this time. Incineroar might take another moment, but yeah, it's surely on its way out sooner rather than later. Again, this is a locked game at this point, and again, a testament to just how strong this Weezing team is with no matter what mode that you decide to opt in for.
It really feels like the flexibility of it and the unpredictability of it, right? Riley got caught badly in a trap in game 1 with the Weezing switching in as Miraidon switched in, and Miraidon losing so much of its health for that. And then once again gets caught in the more expected trap from this team in game 2.
Love to hear the cheers from the crowd as well as John Mills. Big congratulations on a clean 2-0, but also being one of the few players here at Atlanta, one of the largest events, to be ending off